You have to defend yourself when you are in a war because you are being attacked. And I would also prefer to live in a world where there was no defense spending if all countries in the world were peaceful. But as we are painfully experiencing, and the Ukrainians even more painfully now in the 5th year, that is not the case. Either you prepare to be able to defend yourself in order to deter anyone from even trying.
As fears over Russia grow and U.S. commitment comes under scrutiny, Germany sounds the alarm on its military readiness. Germany's defense leadership demands a major military buildup, arguing the armed forces must be prepared for future threats. Berlin voices concern over Europe's defense capabilities amid mounting uncertainty over long-term security guarantees.
Martin Romanchik, DPA Germany. I wanted to ask Martin a question first, if you allow me. You represent the largest and key information agency in Germany. Do you, as a journalist, pay attention to the fact that your country is preparing for war? Is that true, or do we think so? Are you really going to fight with Russia?
I protest. You may not answer. You are not here for an interrogation.
Chancellor Merz pushes for a stronger army even as Moscow dismisses claims that Russia is preparing for war. NATO's anxieties come into focus as questions grow over Washington's future role in European security. Merz points to growing strains in U.S.-German relations, saying cooperation has become increasingly difficult under Trump.
We know that things have become more difficult, that relations with the Americans have changed since Trump became President of the United States for a second time. But precisely because it has become more difficult, we want Germany to make an especially reliable contribution to preserving NATO.
Germany pushed for a more robust military posture as reports suggested the United States was considering withdrawing from a major arms-related arrangement. Germany's Defense Minister Boris Pistorius called for greater war readiness while addressing military personnel during an army event on June 6. Speaking at the event, Pistorius defended Berlin's efforts to strengthen the armed forces and enhance deterrence capabilities.
This world is different from the one it was 5 or even 20 years ago, or 16 years ago, when conscription was suspended. And we have to face this reality. I understand everyone who feels uncomfortable with this. And I would also prefer to live in a world where there was no defense spending if all countries in the world were peaceful. But as we are painfully experiencing, and the Ukrainians even more painfully now in the 5th year, that is not the case. Either you prepare to be able to defend yourself in order to deter anyone from even trying. We don't want to take that risk. I see, and I speak with many critics. They still feel uncomfortable about it, but they somehow understand the necessity. And at the same time, everyone has a point when they say it can't just be about making the armed forces stronger. We must always simultaneously make every diplomatic effort so that peace can be maintained or secured and maintained once again. That must never stop. The word war-capable is not meant to imply that we want to wage war, let alone a war of aggression. We have a sentence in our Constitution that reads, "The Federal Republic of Germany shall establish armed forces for its defense," that describes the mission. Why do we need armed forces? You need armed forces to be able to defend yourself. You have to defend yourself when you are in a war because you are being attacked. So what capabilities must one possess? You must possess the capability to fight this war and ideally to win it as well. Otherwise, there is no need to fight it. This capability to be able to fight a war. The term Taktikkeit is a similar German expression for that. A special kind of capability. Hence the term. What connects them here with us in our Bundeswehr, our soldiers, is far more than just a profession, namely the willingness to stand up for each other in an emergency, but also otherwise in a spirit of comradeship. And the conviction, and this is particularly important, the conviction and the willingness to do it, namely to protect our democracy. Our democracy needs protection from internal enemies. We all must do this and against external enemies. The armed forces must do that. This mission is not an empty phrase. It demands courage. It demands resolve. And it demands the willingness to take responsibility, externally as well as internally. And that for all of us together. We must show a stable presence in a time when uncertainty and instability are growing around us. The past months and years have clearly shown this. Russia is continuing its brutal war of aggression against Ukraine with undiminished severity. This war has now entered its 5th year and has lasted longer than the First World War. In the Near and Middle East, we see how quickly conflicts escalate and what consequences this has for us in Europe. The current tensions around the Strait of Hormuz show how vulnerable global trade routes and supply chains are. Also, and not least, for us here in Germany and Europe. We will therefore make a contribution to the security of the sea routes together with partners as soon as the conditions for this are met. We are fulfilling our responsibility for the security of Europe, for our alliances, and for the protection of the people in our country. Dear guests, that is the mission. That is the mission of your Bundeswehr. And this mission does not end at the German national border. This includes our participation in multinational missions such as in Kosovo, the training of Ukrainian soldiers, and by the way, for a long time now, vice versa. Ukrainian soldiers are also training our soldiers with the experiences they have had to gather there on the battlefield. The preparation of possible multinational missions to protect maritime trade routes in the Mediterranean is also part of it, or a soon-to-be-deployed air defense task force in Turkey to protect NATO alliance territory. Germany is also present there and helps everywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, the phrase applies, we are there. And we pitch in. And for that, you can look to your troops. You can be proud of that.
Meanwhile, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz renewed his criticism of Donald Trump amid continuing disagreements over security and defense issues.
The democratic center in our country is under attack from both the far left and the far right. On one side, there is still the Left Party, the successor to the SED, the party that oppressed people and denied them freedom for 40 years, and which today acts as if Putin were a reliable partner. And then, to put figuratively on the other side of the street, there is a party that stands in the tradition of the worst injustice our country has ever experienced in its history. We know that the European Union is a guarantee of prosperity, freedom, and peace in Europe. We want to remain in NATO. We know that things have become more difficult, that relations with the Americans have changed since Trump became President of the United States for a second time. But precisely because it has become more difficult, we want Germany to make an especially reliable contribution to preserving NATO.
The remarks by Pistorius and Merz came shortly after Vladimir Putin publicly defended a German journalist during an interaction.
Martin Romanchik, DPA Germany. I wanted to ask Martin a question first, if you allow me. You represent the largest and key information agency in Germany. Do you, as a journalist, pay attention to the fact that your country is preparing for war? Is that true, or do we think so? Are you really going to fight with Russia?
I protest. You may not answer. You are not here for an interrogation. You are as an investigator here, ask me.
Then we will talk separately after this meeting.
Meanwhile, reports indicated that Trump was considering another policy move that could affect transatlantic security and defense cooperation. According to reports, the Pentagon is reconsidering a major missile deployment that was expected to bolster NATO's deterrence posture in Europe. If approved, the move would undo a key security arrangement negotiated between Washington and Berlin during the previous administration. American officials reportedly fear that stationing long-range missiles in Germany could further increase tensions with Moscow. Berlin has consistently maintained that advanced strike capabilities are essential for reinforcing Europe's security architecture. German officials believe such systems are increasingly necessary as the conflict in Ukraine continues to reshape Europe's security environment. Without the Tomahawk deployment, Germany may be forced to accelerate efforts to acquire comparable long-range strike capabilities elsewhere. Sergei Ryabkov specifically warned Ukraine and its Western allies against any aggressions toward Russia, hinting that such actions could provoke a catastrophic response. He made these remarks on June 3 on the sidelines of the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, using an economic showcase to deliver a strategic warning. Sergei Ryabkov said, and I quote, "As regards us, Those hypothetical extreme situations that may trigger the use of these weapons were outlined in detail in Russia's military doctrine and the fundamentals of Russia's state policy on nuclear deterrence. To put it somewhat straightforwardly, these documents send a signal that encroachments on Russia or its territorial integrity by aggressors, including those who may possess such weapons, could prompt us to use these weapons in the worst-case scenario. End quote. His warning came as Ukrainian drones struck both energy and military sites in St. Petersburg on June 3, linking the nuclear rhetoric directly to fresh attacks on Russian soil.